18 cash-in-transit heist suspects were shot dead by police yesterday in Makhado, Limpopo. 4 others have been apprehended. Among the dead, there's a gardener and 2 women, but the Hawks say all are being treated as suspects. Police Commissioner General Newzroom says the group was also linked to heists in Mpumalanga and Gauteng. Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Willem Els, a security expert with the Institute of Security Studies. Willem, appreciate your time this evening. My first question really is around the amount of firepower that was involved in this 90-minute shootout between these 18 suspects and the police.
Good evening to you. Yes, if you look at the time of the shootout, it seems that these criminals must have had quite a huge number of ammunition with them, as well as we see that according to the report, 7 high-powered firearms were also confiscated. That just gives us an indicator that the access to ammunition and firearms of these groups are really well.
Well, they're a syndicate, and I suppose when you look at the broader terms of a syndicate, one would expect that they would be prepared to this degree. But just how prepared and equipped were the police officers involved in the operation to handle a protracted gun battle like this? One of the things that we picked up is that only one of the police officers was injured. So they must have been fully prepared, well prepared.
Yes, I think we should commend the police on their preparedness, but also what is very important, we see that this operation started a few months ago, where a good intelligence was gathered on this group, and that was followed up by good investigation of this case, and they prepared, they went in there with a well thought out plan and they were well equipped to do what they do, and also the police officers that were present were also highly trained police officers.
Now, in a situation like this, what are the potential risks to nearby civilians and properties, and how can law enforcement minimize these risks? Because we noticed that this homestead, this house, was sandwiched between 2 others. So invariably there could be casualties or people caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, unfortunately, so living in a violent society as in South Africa, there's always the possibility of collateral damage whenever there's an operation. Whenever there's a CIT bombing or ATM robbery, or wherever there's armed robbery, the civilians unfortunately do come in the crossfire. But normally when the police do plan for a operation like this, especially if they have the luxury of planning so long in advance, they all take all of these things into consideration, and they also build in steps to mitigate the collateral damage. So I would think that the police would have bring that into their plan, and maybe that is also one of the reasons why we haven't seen any reports of some of the neighbors that also were hit by this unfortunate incident.
So you're suggesting that potentially the police, before they moved in on these suspects, would have visited the neighbors' residences and asked them to leave or vacate the premises?
Well, we don't know what their plan was. We can only speculate on that. That is one of the options that you can take. The risk that you have is that if the neighbors are complicit, then it might blow your operation. So there's a lot of things that they have to consider before they take these steps. But typically, that is one of the steps that could have been taken by them.
Now, what we understand, or what is very clear, is that there were 18 individuals, and a huge number of these, from the information we have, were obviously firing back at police. Now, how big would it be in the police task team, or certainly the police force that was on the ground present, dealing with these 18 armed suspects?
From experience, it must have been way more than 18. If you have good information intelligence, then normally you want to go in with more firepower than what the criminals have. So traditionally, they would go in with a much stronger force than the criminals themselves.
So when you analyze this, Willem, as a security expert, what do we read between the lines? I mean, what are those things that I, as a regular citizen or regular individual, am not thinking about that, but that you would perceive into what transpired yesterday?
Well, one of the first things that we must realize is that these criminals are within us. They are amongst us. They live in the suburbs that we are. And you know, observant citizens would pick up some of these strange things. And one of the main things of community-based policing is the trust between the police. So we will have to restore that trust between the police and the community, that when the community pick up these strange things that are being done and operations in the neighborhood, then they should then feel free to report it to the police. And then the police should deal with that in a very professional way and follow up and without jeopardizing or compromising the safety of the people that came to them. That's one of the first things that comes to mind if you look at this. These people, they are heavily armed, but also one of the concerns that you have is that the mention of a large amount of explosives that were also found. You know, and typically these criminals, they do not store or handle these explosives in a safe way or in a prescribed way according to your safety standards. So that also compromises the safety of the whole neighborhood, because if it was a huge amount of explosives, it would have affected the inhabitants of that house, but also the neighboring houses, should something have gone wrong with that explosives.
Now, not trying to link stories here, but there have been in the last few weeks reports of corrupt policemen being involved with gangs such as cash and transit heist gangs, for an instance. Now, let's look at these 18 individuals that are fighting with trained police officers for an entire hour and a half. How skilled would they have to be to put on a fight of this magnitude? I mean, it is a battle of sorts, is it not?
Yeah, that was a battle. It was a true battle. And, you know, unfortunately so, we see that many of these cash and transit robbers, your specialists with the guns, remember, they recruit people that are specialists in firearms to be part of the team. They recruit people who are specialists in explosives to do the blasting, specialist drivers, etc., etc. They are extremely organized in what they do. So what they typically do, they either recruit serving police or military members or former military members, and not only from South Africa, but also from our neighboring countries, where some of these highly skilled soldiers then become criminals and become part of this group. So they're recruited because there's a lot of money at stake here, and unfortunately so, it's lucrative for these people that become involved. What we also saw in recent weeks is, unfortunately so, that with most of the arrests where syndicates have been arrested, at least one or two policemen have also been arrested with those syndicates. That's just an indication of how deep the rot is within our police service. And with that, we really applaud the police members that are straight shooting, straight walking, and are really working their butts off to keep us safe. It's just unfortunate that they have these rotten apples between them.
Now, given the involvement of multiple law enforcement units and the use of automatic rifles, what coordination challenges may have arisen during the operation, and how can they be addressed in future operations, do you think?
Well, firstly, as I mentioned, you know, you have to have good intelligence. Once you've got your good intelligence, you verify that intelligence, then it is very good. One of the members that was in charge there, I know him well, and he's very well trained. He's very well trained in not only planning of operations, but also executing of operations. He's really a very good operator. So I would believe that he would have meticulously planned with his counterparts on this. And that is also one thing that is very important, you know, as you mentioned, to bring in all the different specialists. You know, within the police, you've got various specialities. They form the task team here, as you can gather from the multidisciplinary force that operated. But also what is important, it seems that they also involved private security companies and so on. Remember, a lot of your expertise within the police have moved to the private sector, and it is time that we embrace that. The police have to take the lead. They are of course, it is their mandate, but they can really do with the support of these private companies and security companies, where a lot of the expertise is embedded. We saw that happen in this incident, and we need to applaud the police for that.
Now, I want to come back to something that you mentioned a little while ago, and that is the incognito attitude, or how many of these criminals operate, that they're amongst us. And if without the trained eye, you may not always pick up that you're living with criminals. If we take a look at the Thabo Bester case, for instance, when Thabo Bester and his accomplices went to Tanzania, they fitted into a residential suburb where nobody realized that these people were fugitives wanted for a crime of crimes in South Africa. Now, similarly, the description that we've been given is that one of the women was a businesswoman who was killed, was a businesswoman, a jovial member of the community, right? But what we also know is that these 18 individuals were all together in a single residence. Is this a telltale sign for us, or for neighbours or individuals in a community, that something may be fishy?
Of course, that gives you an indication. Not every gathering in a neighbourhood is going to be suspicious, but we could gather that these people have been operational for some time, and that might have been picked up or should have been picked up by the neighbours. That's one of the indicators that they have to look at. Also, remember that, as you mentioned, these people are highly skilled. These guys are professionals in what they do. Whenever they get together, organized crime gang of this magnitude, they got the luxury to identify and to select the best in the business, and every member of that gang is elected and recruited based on his or her speciality and what they can contribute to this operation of them. We must also understand, some time ago I was training some senior police officers in Tanzania, and my question to them was, why do we call it organized crime? And the one commissioner raised her hand and she said, maybe because they are more organized than us. And that made me think, from the police's side, we need to step up and organize our reactions and our operations in a similar fashion than this one was organized, because the criminals are very organized.
Well, Willem, appreciate your time this evening. Willem Els, ISS security expert, giving us a breakdown on that shooting.